A new feature was just recently released into the Microsoft Azure Government Cloud environment that allows you to easily set up VNet integration to your app services without having to use PowerShell. Previously, if we wanted to do this, we had to have to come to this document here, which is hosted in the Microsoft Azure Government blog. And if I scroll down here, you'd see that there's a script here. You would have to come out here, download this PowerShell script, and then run it and connect to your Azure Government subscription to configure the app service to VNet integration. Now, it wasn't a very complicated thing to do, but some people are not real comfortable with using command line tools or utilizing PowerShell. So now we have a option that allows us to do this completely inside the Microsoft Azure portal. And I want to kind of demonstrate that for you here. And I also want to talk a little bit about why you might want to do this. So first of all, let's jump over here to the Azure Government Portal, and I'm going to go into a resource group that I've previously created with some resources. And you'll see here that I've got an app service, which is a web app. I've got a virtual network gateway, and then there's a public IP address, which is used by the gateway. So these items I've already pre-created inside of my subscription here. Now, what I want to do is connect my app service or my web app here into my virtual network. Now, why would I want to do this? Well, I may have some machines that are, infrastructure as a service or virtual machines that are sitting inside of my virtual network, and I want to be able to communicate with them from my web app. Or maybe I have this virtual network connected to an on-premises network through a site-to-site VPN or even through ExpressRoute. And I want this web app to be able to communicate to this virtual network so I can get to my on-premises network. So there might be some resources like a database that's on-premises. And I want to build out this true hybrid solution that spans both the cloud and my on-premises environment. So there's multiple reasons why we might want to have this kind of configuration. Now, to get started, what we need to do is first off decide how we're going to integrate with our virtual network. Do we have one that already exists, or do we need to create one? In this case, I already have a virtual network that already exists. It already has a gateway so that I could set up a site-to-site VPN, and it has the public IP address which is used by the gateway for that site-to-site VPN. So in this case, I have everything I need to establish app service to VNet integration and allow communication to my on-premises network. But what if I don't have any of this already? Well, we can also go through some steps which will automatically build everything that you need to get this going. So a couple of things to be aware of. The way that the app service to VNet integration works is through point-to-site connectivity, which is basically a VPN tunnel. And so that's why no matter what we do, if we want to have app service to virtual network integration, we have to have a virtual network gateway. So whether you create that manually or you allow the process that I'm about to show you to automatically create it, we have to have one of those. Okay. And when we go into our gateway, we'll see here that there's a configuration section for point to site configuration. So if I click in here, we need to make sure that this is fully configured. We need to have an address pool. We need to have a certificate, which is used to encrypt the tunnel from the app service to our virtual network. So once again, you can configure all of this manually if you would like. And some customers that already have a virtual network and a gateway already established, this is probably what you're going to do, is you'll come in here and configure all of this right through the portal to get yourself started. For other customers that don't already have a virtual network set up, you may choose to allow the system to automatically create all of that for you. So let's go through a couple steps. First, we'll click on our app service here. And this is going to show us this new networking setting, which gives us the option to set up our integration. So if I scroll down here on the left side, you'll see networking. Click on networking, and you're going to see here it gives us two options. One, we can learn more, or we can go through the setup process. So if I click on Learn More, it's going to open up the additional documentation that explains what VNet integration really is and how you can go about using it to manage and set up your environment. So you'll see here that it talks about enabling VNet integration, It explains a little bit more of how it works. So basically that point to site tunnel and then some things about managing it. So if I come back here to my portal and I click on setup, now once again, remember we're in the app service. If I click setup, it's going to show me all of the virtual networks that are in the region where my app service plan resides. In this case, I have two virtual networks that are available in that region. One of them is grayed out, and it's grayed out because this one does not have a gateway. Remember, I said that if you're going to take an existing virtual network and use that for your integration with your app service, it has to have a gateway. Since this one does not have a gateway configured with point-to-site connectivity, you'll see that it's grayed out. I can't actually select it. But I do have one that is already configured, and we kind of walked through that just a moment ago. So I could select that one. If I don't have any virtual networks established yet, I can also click on this and create a new virtual network. Very straightforward, very easy to do. This not only creates the virtual network, but also creates the gateway and the point-to-site connectivity configuration. So we'd start off by giving it a virtual network name, and then we need an IP address block for our virtual network, our first subnet, the first subnet's IP address range that we wish to use. Now, all of those are standard things that we would do anytime we create a virtual network, but we have a couple additional things here. Gateway subnet address block. Anytime that we want to do VNet integration with an app service, we have to have a gateway. So this is just basically saying, what is the IP range that we're going to use when we create our gateway? And then we also have similar point-to-site connectivity address block. So we have to put in an IP address range that would be used to assign an IP to any of the items that are connecting from a point-to-site connectivity perspective. So if you fill all of that out, hit OK, it will begin the process of creating the new virtual network along with the gateway. Now, creating a virtual network itself is a quite quick, simple process. The gateway takes about 20 to 30 minutes to provision. So if you do this through here, be prepared that you're going to have to wait probably about a half an hour for that gateway to be fully provisioned. Once it's fully provisioned, you will see then here in this list again, your virtual network, and it will be enabled so that you'll be able to click on it to assign that to your app service. So I'll go ahead and do that. And you'll see it doesn't take very long at all for this to actually complete, because what it's doing is it's basically establishing a point-to-site connection from our web app all the way back to our virtual network that we just configured here. So as you can see, it just completed. So it just took a couple moments for that to happen. So now that this is connected, my web app sitting in this app service can communicate to any resource that's in my virtual network. In this case, it's called MH Demo VNet. If I click on the click here to configure, we'll see all of the settings for that connection. So we'll see the virtual network that it's connected to, what location, so what data center region are we in, certificate sync status. So this just ensures that the certificate that's being used for encryption in the virtual network is also in sync with the web app itself. Because if they're not in sync, then you don't have security encryption across that tunnel, and the tunnel can't be established. We see that our gateway's online, so everything looks good here. So this means that we have a good connection between our web app in our app service and our virtual network. Now, like I mentioned, if our virtual network also happens to be connected to our on-premises environment through a site-to-site VPN or an express route tunnel, our web app could communicate with resources in our on-premises network. So as you can see, this is very quick and easy to set up. Now, if for some reason at some point in the future you decide that your app service plan no longer needs to have connectivity to that virtual network, you just have to click on the disconnect button here. And if I click on that and hit yes, it's just going to take, once again, a couple moments here. As you can see, it's already done. So it's very quick to disconnect that app service from our virtual network. So as you can see, this is quite simple. For some people, it might be easier than using PowerShell and digging into some scripting. For those that are hardcore shell folks, PowerShell's the way to go. It also gives you a lot more automation and control, and you can kind of script things so you do things in a very standard format. But if you need to do this in kind of a one-off scenario, or if you are kind of new to this and you just want to try some things out, using this new networking option that's inside of the app service is very easy and will get you up and running pretty quick.